Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Outdoor Pursuits Online. Getting started with Colorado 14ers presentation. I would like to welcome David Kramer and thank him up front here for presenting on this very interesting topic. But first of all, let's go around. If you'd like to introduce yourself, I'll get started. I'm Brian. I help coordinate the Outdoor Pursuits program through Campus Recreation at MSU Denver. And I've been interested in mountains and mountaineering for a very long time, and I'm looking forward to understanding more about David's perspective on that. And then I'll hand off to Dave Lamont.
Yeah, so I'm Dave Lamont. Happy to be here. It's going to be an exciting conversation. I'm the Assistant Director of Sports with Campus Recreation, so I handle our club sports program and our intramural sports program. And worked with Brian in the outdoor program during my undergrad, and then for a few years after that.
If anybody wants to jump in, I welcome you. If not, I'll launch in. Okay. David, again, thank you for presenting. I'm looking forward to this. A little introduction for David. David Kramer grew up on the plains of Brooklyn, New York. He has a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics, graduating Phi Beta Kappa from the City College of New York. He also has a Master's of Science in Computer Science with 3 Excellence Awards from Israel's leading research institute, the Weizmann Institute of Science, which is Israel's only research institute. David started teaching math at Metro in 2009 as an affiliate faculty member and has been teaching full-time in the Department of Computer Science since 2013. He climbed all of Colorado's 54 14ers over a 12-year period. David, thank you again for being here and presenting on this fascinating topic. I'm excited to hear about your experience and philosophy of climbing peaks.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm David Kramer. Welcome and thank you for coming. I think we're going to have a lot of fun this morning. And we're hearing about 14ers. I'm always happy to talk about them. So anytime you want to talk about them, give me a jingle. I want to dedicate this climb to my dear beloved climbing partner, Dave Vidrick, who passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease. This was his license plate, up all 54. He climbed all of them, of course, and we managed to climb 8 or 9 of them together. So Dave, this is for you. He would sometimes say, even if you just drove to the 54 trailheads, you'd see amazing stuff. Here are some examples: the high country in the fall, and a white stream because it came through an underground calcium deposit. So you see all sorts of amazing stuff on the trailheads even. So mountain lore. People ask me, well, how do you get started? Well, to climb all the 14ers, start with the first one. The best way to learn to climb a mountain is to climb a mountain. The nickname for a summit is no more up. I love that, no more up. You're at the top of the mountain. You can't go any higher. The hardest 14er is the one you're on at the moment. People start climbing the easy ones because the harder ones are harder. And here's a cure for shortcut takers. I speak from experience. Whether or not there's a trail, there's a reason. So if you're ever tempted to take a shortcut, please remember this. Mountain Law from Jerry Roach, who wrote the definitive book on climbing 14ers. Never pass up a chance to pee. I can attest to that one also. Have fun and remember why you started. You'll be As you climb 14ers, you'll be huffing and puffing. Your knees and quads will be talking to you. You might say to yourself, why am I doing this? Remember why you started. People say to me, I've climbed only 5 or 10 or 30 14ers. Here's the population of the world. You're among a select few if you climbed one 14er, or certainly 5 or 10 or 30. At least one time in every climb, I would say to myself, why am I doing this? Because my quads are talking to me, or my knees, or couldn't catch my breath, or there was a dark cloud in the distance, or close up. And the answer was always because it's fun. It was a great time. This is the one where I said the most often, why am I doing this? This is Capitol Peak's Knife Edge. It literally is an inverted V. You scamper across like a jockey rides a horse, holding on to dear life with your arms and your feet and your legs. And you inch forward a little bit at a time. It's 100 feet long. To the right is a drop of 1,200 feet. To the left, a drop of 1,600 feet. And the joke is you lean to the right in case you fall. So it's less of a fall. And this, of course, do I really want to do this? That was right before the knife edge. And there's the summit you can see in the distance. You might also notice that there's no real trail over here. There turns out to be a trail to the summit. And so sometimes you can't see it, so you have to trust that it's there. Nature is the great equalizer. I'll let you read this. Doesn't matter how many degrees you have, how smart you are. Nature is a divider on the 14ers. Nature rules. Dave worked as a clerk in a deli, and I follow him up any peak anytime. Capitol Lake is my favorite spot in Colorado. It's under Capitol Peak. I was there 4 times to try to summit. Summited on the 4th time. I was there 3 different summers, and each time the same meadow had different wildflowers because of the amount of snow the previous winter, the temperature in May or June. So it really is spectacle to behold. Here's an entire field of wildflowers. My background, I decided in 1988 when my younger daughter was graduating high school. She was graduating in 1990. My then wife and I decided to leave Los Angeles and come to Colorado. Only after I bought a home in Colorado did I hear about the 14ers. And I thought, that's interesting. I didn't really say, well, I'm going to climb them all or I got to see them all. But I just learned about it after I had bought a home in Colorado. My first 14er was in July of 1991. I climbed with a friend and his son. And literally near the summit, I felt like my heart was 6 feet ahead of me. It was beating so fast. I was probably about 300 feet below the summit. And I didn't know if I could go any further because I didn't know if my heart could go any further. After number 6, I decided to climb all of them because it was just so much fun and nice workout and being where there's no more up, seeing the vistas and enjoying the views on the way up. After number 18, I felt I'd be able to do all of them, and I wasn't sure of that. After number 18, I said, yeah, I can do it. And 12 years after starting, I summited South Maroon Peak, which is the left bell of the Maroon Bells, which was an 18-hour climb. We left at 3 in the morning, got back at 9 in the evening, and wouldn't trade it for anything. The weather was so gorgeous, we managed to spend an hour on the summit, just lounging and enjoying the views. This is the view from number 54. A few comments here. You may have heard of Snowmass Mountain. It's right here. It's got a huge snow field. That's Snowmass Peak, I should say. Here's Capitol Peak. And this is tree line. When you start climbing, you're typically in the forest. But at some point around 11,000 feet is tree line in Colorado. Depends if it's north facing or south facing slope. North facing will be lower because it gets colder. And you come out of tree line and you're in an alpine meadow. It's just like you're in Alaska. It's an amazing sight to behold when you emerge, and especially when you see the trees near the end of tree line. They're all gnarled and gnarly from the wind. They're not protected by other trees. And it's just a sight to behold when you emerge from the forest. Some resources for you. By the way, the slideshow will be available to anybody who wants them. That's why I don't have any progressive statements. So when you go through the slideshow, you can see everything all at once. You don't have to step through line by line. 14ers.com is an amazing resource. It sprung up in around somewhere in the 1990s, and it's become the place to go to before a climb. You get trip reports from people who were just there the day before or a week before. They tell you the snow conditions. They tell you there's ice on the trail, there's no ice on the trail. Oh, I'm sorry. So it's when you're ready to go on a climb, check 14ers.com. It shows you the different scenes as you climb. It shows you different sights you can expect to see, which can help you reassure yourself you're on the right trailhead. The Bible for climbing 14ers is Jerry Roach's book. He climbed every single route in the book, multiple routes for each mountain. So he's been up to the 14ers 7, 8, or 9 times, maybe even more. He was the second person to climb the 7 summits. The 7 summits are the highest peaks in each of the 7 continents. So yes, he's climbed Everest, he climbed Mount Denali in Alaska. He was the second person in the world to do that. And I had the pleasure of having lunch with him back in the 90s. Amazing guy, modest as you couldn't believe. CMC.org, I can't recommend this site high enough. It's up there with 14ers.com. The Colorado Mountain Club, they have different mountaineering schools. I started with the Wilderness Trekking School, where I learned a lot about climbing in the mountains, climbing in the wilderness, what to take along, what not to take along, clothing, weather practice. They have, when you join the club, they have 4 levels of hikes, A through D. And A is the simple hikes with maybe no elevation gain or very little. And D are 14ers, C and D are 14ers. So you work your way up, and you get to climb different places, or hike in different places, just enjoying Colorado. And you meet a lot of friends, you meet a lot of potential climbing buddies on these hikes. RA.com, of course, is the co-op. I'm sure you'll have heard of it. If you haven't, go there. The flagship store is downtown Denver. They have seminars on 14ers, much like I'm talking now. They have whole evenings about that, hiking in the high country, and more importantly, experts to help you choose the right gear, because it's bewildering, all the gear that's out there. What should you get? What should you buy? What should you maybe rent instead of buy? Rent to try out, see if you like it. Rent a certain kind of tent, see if it works for you, and then buy a tent. So they advise you on all these things, and they're really good about it. Again, can't recommend them enough. This gives you a perspective on alpine wildflowers. The summer season is very short in the high country, so flowers don't have time to grow. Here's a perspective on the size of my finger versus an alpine wildflower. The first time I saw alpine forget-me-nots, I couldn't believe it. They were about this size. The regular forget-me-not is probably about 3 to 4 inches wide. This you can see is very small. Another reason to climb 14 is to get to see all these wildflowers. What food do you eat? It's common to go do what's called carbo loading. Pasta is the most common because it's full of carbos. Hydrate, which is a fancy word for drinking water. And remember that you climb what you ate the day before, not breakfast that day. What you ate the day or two before is what you're climbing on. So start hydrating a few days before. Get your body nice and full of water. And of course, you drink during the climb, but you'll have additional backup, so to speak, from what you drank and ate the day before. How about some pasta? I learned it was better to defrost the pasta before eating it. I used to freeze a whole lot of pasta, so I'd always have some. If I suddenly got a chance to go on a climb, I would be able to defrost it real quick. So I kept some pasta frozen in the freezer at all times. During the climb, take lots of water. I'm a tall guy, I'm 6'0". At the time, weighed about 180, 190. And I need a lot of water. So I would take 3 32-ounce, not bottles, what do you call them? The canisters of water. It's heavy, so allow for that in your pack. I always came back with extra water. You want to make sure you budget your water so that when you come back, you still have some in your tank. So that if you have a twisted ankle, or you're delayed on the trail for whatever reason, you still have plenty of water. You can survive without food for a while. You can't survive without water for too long. Take along easily digestible carbohydrate foods and drinks. They get absorbed easily in your stomach and your body, so you have extra energy when you're climbing. And take food that you like. I was so diligent about taking the right food that some of it I didn't like. And then somebody said to me, well, "Here, you want a chocolate chip cookie?" I said, "You're eating chocolate chip cookies on a climb?" I said, "Yeah, I always take food that I like." That's when I started my yolk peppermint patties, my favorite candy. So I'd always take one to eat on the summit. So take food that you like.
Can you give examples of carbo high foods?
A lot of the granola bars, a lot of the protein, not the protein bars. What did I take? Dave climbed on Skittles. He would eat only Skittles, but I didn't like Skittles. Carbohydrate foods. I would always take a sandwich, so the bread and the carb in the bread was helpful. I always took a peanut butter sandwich with some jelly. Had the York peppermint patty. I would take different granola bars for snacks on the way up and the way down. I'm trying to think. I can't think of any others right now. If I do, I'll send out a broadcast.
That's pretty similar to my choices as well, David.
What are they?
Those choices that you listed. It includes some of those more longer burning carbohydrates and some very quick burning carbohydrates, a combination of those. And so like what you mentioned is perfect, I think, too. And then, the idea that bring food that you like is just so fundamental. And we try to emphasize that all the time, bring some treats for sure.
What about fruit? Is there any good fruit you recommend?
Anything that can stay in a pack without getting mushed. I wouldn't take peaches, I would take pears, for example.
Okay.
Peaches get mushed, but you can also put them in a small plastic container so they don't get smushed. So you can do that. And they don't get crushed in the pack if you have them in the containers. So I would take along bananas also. Bananas are great foods. It's a perfect food in the literal sense. And I like them. I like bananas. I would take along bananas in a plastic container. Yeah, I'll skip one. After the climb, be sure to hydrate a lot. Your body lost a lot of water, so get yourself pumping water again, and eat lots of protein to help your muscles rebuild. You really put them to a test on a 14er, so give them some chance to rebuild well. One of my favorite pictures of all time in climbing 14ers, this is the San Juan Mountain range. As far as the eye can see, that's Dave in the foreground. This is Mount Sneffels. 14 and number 42, one of my favorite climbs. It's an amazing climb. You can see the views, I don't have to tell you. And Dave was about 200 feet below the summit. I was on the summit already. And Dave was just taking his time. You can see the whole Snowmass Mountain range. Well, not the whole, but you can see how expansive it is. And it's just beautiful, just gorgeous. Can't say enough nice things about it. Oh yeah, how about the climb itself? We're talking about everything except the climb. Always leave early, be on the trail with first daylight. You maybe even leave a little earlier using one of those flashlights you can mount on your head, a headlamp. Give yourself plenty of time to get to the summit. Be sure to rest, even if you're feeling good. Be sure to rest. Give your body a chance to recover a little bit because you're really putting it to a test when you're climbing. And hydrate. Take time to hydrate and have a snack. On the summit of every 14er, the Colorado Mountain Trail maintains a log in a metal canister, and you get to sign your name and the day that you were there, and make a comment. So in the beginning, I wrote original things like, "Boy, the views are great," and then I just started writing what number 14er it was, and let other people write what they felt the 14er was to them. So it's fun to do that. It's fun to find the canister, and it's anchored to the summit. It's got a little metal pole so you can open it up easily. The metal, the metal rod, so you can open it up easily. I'm often asked, what about the elevation gain? The easier 14ers are about 3,000 to 3,500 foot elevation gain. And a rough rule of thumb is about an hour for each 1,000 feet of elevation gain. Of course, it depends on your shape. It depends on if you feel like taking it slow one day, if you feel like rushing one day. I never climb fast. I always look to take my time and relish the scenery I was seeing and breathe of that beautiful mountain air. So I never was in a rush to climb. So keep that as a rule of thumb. The harder 14ers have more elevation gain, but also have more difficult trails, so the 1 hour doesn't really apply, maybe an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours for each 1,000 feet of elevation gain. And be sure to stop and smell the granite along the way. By the way, you'll learn very, very quickly that granite is very hard, very hard. So be prepared to cushion your body a bit, or be prepared to say ow every now and then if you happen to slip and fall against some granite on the wall next to this trail you're climbing. But be sure to stop and smell the roses while you're climbing. To me, it's one of the most beautiful parts of the climb. Let's see, what's the message of this slide? Be off the summit by noon. That's a rough rule of thumb, of course, but you want to be off the summit by noon. In the high country, thunderstorms tend to develop starting around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, sometimes sooner, but they usually by 2 or 3 o'clock, you're almost guaranteed to be in a brief but compelling thunderstorm with lightning. So you want to be off the summit by noon is a good rule of thumb. That's why you want to start early. If you start early and the weather's great, you get to sit on the summit for a long time. It's called summit sitting. You get to sit on the summit for a long time and enjoy the views and just contemplate your navel, contemplate nature. So you get rewarded by starting early. And you use your judgment, of course. If you see clouds forming to the west, that's a signal to start getting off to the summit, especially if they're dark clouds. The white cumulus clouds aren't that dangerous, but they have a tendency to develop into thunderstorms. So be sure you're off the summit by noon. And if in case I didn't emphasize it enough, be off the summit by noon. On the descent, be careful. More injuries happen on the way down because you're elated, you summited, you're tired, you don't realize it. Your muscles may be hurting, and you're not really feeling them. They might not be hurting yet, but they might be on the way to hurting. So the fatigue sets in at some point on your way down. So be more astute be more careful on the way down. And at your base camp, have a cooler ready with cold water, drinks, snacks. Keep it in the car if you're car camping. So you have something very refreshing to drink on your way back when you finally reach base camp. This is Dave on the way up to Capitol Peak. This is about 100 feet below the summit, vertical feet below the summit. When you talk about feet on mountains, you're typically referring to vertical. The horizontal isn't that difficult as much as the vertical. So I was rounding a corner here, and he said, "You're going to like the view from here," because he saw the summit 100 feet, about 200-300 feet from there, 100 feet below the summit. And this is us on the Capitol Peak summit. My number is 53. And Dave created this T-shirt. You may have seen this T-shirt on people where they have all the 14ers listed. He's the one who created it. He was a deli clerk, as I said, and he drove a BMW sports car from money here and from making the T-shirt. So and on the back is a list you can check off. And this is the summit. This is the view from the end of the knife edge towards the summit. The trail goes around here somewhere, wraps around, and suddenly you're on the way. Suddenly you're near the summit. Most things are easier than Capitol Peak's knife edge. You'll find that when you climb, you'll have certain mountains that are more of your favorite or more difficult, and you feel even the more gratified that you climb them. For me, it was Capitol Peak. It took me 4 attempts to climb, and by the time I got to the 4th one, I scampered across the knife edge. Not on my feet, but I just went across very quickly. I wasn't afraid of it anymore. On a previous climb, I was halfway across the knife edge, and I panicked. So on the knife edge itself, imagine an inverted V, I turned around on the knife edge halfway across because I was too scared to go further. The next year I was climbing on number 53. I just went across the edge with no problem. So you learn your limits very quickly, and don't push them too hard. The mountain's there. You can always come back another day, and you quote get to, or you have to go through all that beautiful mountain scenery to get to the peak again. So you're not really losing anything. You get to go back and see it again. So I have this sign hanging in my office and at home. You'll make your own sign from your own 14er or 14ers that were particularly challenging for you. And when things get tough, I think about this. That most things are easier than Capitol Peak's knife edge. Weather. You learn quickly about the weather. As you know, it comes west to east in Colorado. So be sure you'll have your eye on it. Sometimes it's difficult because you're climbing on the east slope, so you can't see the weather till you get near the summit. But always keep checking it, even if it was a clear sky a minute ago. You look to your west and suddenly there's a storm cloud you didn't see before. Mountains make their own weather. You can be on one sunny peak and then the peak nearby is snowing. I've literally seen that. I've experienced both sides of that, being on a sunny peak and then being on a snowy peak. And so weather reports in Denver are useless. I shouldn't say that. If the forecast is for clear skies over Colorado, then chances are it's a pretty good time for a climb. If they say there'll be thunderstorms in the high country, you might want to be sure you're off the peak by what time is it? 12 o'clock. Some experiences with weather. Mount Sherman was number 6. I was still naive about climbing. I was wearing a bathing suit, a t-shirt, and sneakers, and it snowed. So we're on the summit, and suddenly it started snowing. We got down pretty quickly. Mount Oxford, there was thunder snow. There was a thunderstorm and it was snowing. On Kit Carson Mountain was probably the closest time I came to danger because of the weather. It was lightning, but it was cloud to cloud. We really lucked out. It wasn't cloud to ground. It was cloud to cloud lightning, which is gorgeous. You see lightning hopping from cloud to cloud. Mount Bierstadt, I was a trip leader for the Colorado Mountain Club for a while. I was taking a group up Mount Bierstadt. We were about 200 feet below the summit and it started lightning. Turned around, went right down. But it's only 200 feet to the summit. Yeah, but lightning can kill you. So you want to be respectful of nature. Nature rules. So descend. And of course, you're exposed to the elements because you're above tree line. So you're SOL if lightning starts striking near you. As an example of mountain weather, this is Little Bear Peak taken from the summit of Blanco Peak. I'm going to show you another picture. The next picture. What was the time lapse between this picture and this picture? What do you think? Take a guess. The answer is 30 seconds.
I was going to say 2 minutes, even quicker.
30 seconds.
Wow.
You go from this to that. That's how quickly the weather can change in the mountains. This is my idiot picture. Look at the clouds in the background, and I'm standing on the summit reading a newspaper. I took it along as a joke, but I didn't realize that we saw the clouds coming in, but we took our time on the summit, took some pictures, and then headed down. And this is where we had the cloud-to-cloud lightning. This Kit Carson Mountain. On the way down was the cloud-to-cloud lightning. We were just above tree line, so we were really exposed. The ground was wet, of course. The ground water conducts electricity, so even if the lightning bolt hit nearby, we'd be out of luck. So we really lucked out. Equipment, just go to REI. They'll help you with everything. They don't try and sell you a bill of goods. They ask you what your intentions are on climbing. Do you want to just hike in the high country? Do you want to climb in the high country? And there's a lot of equipment you have to get over time, but make it over time so it doesn't hit your wallet right away. So certain things you can climb without. Certain things are buffers, to help you with climbing. What's an example? Well, an example might be extra containers for food. You don't need them right away. You can take along food that doesn't need containers, and buy a little gear at a time. By the way, I'm still wearing my parka from 25 years ago. They sold me not a bill of goods, but the opposite of a bill of goods. So they really know their stuff, and they really guide you towards the best equipment. And don't skimp on buying equipment. Buy the best stuff. And if you have to save up for it, save up for it. It doesn't pay to buy something that's cheap, or to have it wear out or fail on you when you're climbing. The Carabiner is one of the most beloved pieces of equipment. It's so versatile. I only had to use ropes once on the way down from Little Bear, and the Carabiner came in handy, of course, because they support the rope that you're using to descend. But it's a very versatile tool. You can use it as a keychain, get small ones. Use it as a keychain. I learned one of the things I learned at REI was you take a carabiner along, a strong one, and you put it on the back of your pack. There are typically loops on the back of your pack. So if someone's injured, you can attach their pack to your pack, and then you can help them. You have 2 hands free to help them down. So it's these little tidbits you pick up along the way as you climb more 14ers, and climb with other people who have experience. This is again number 54. The view is firmly embedded in my mind. It was just incredible. It was a beautiful day with not a cloud in the sky you can see. And number 35 is Mount Eolus. This is called the Catwalk. It extends from here to here. It's got a reputation for being very difficult to cross. There's a sudden drop here and a sudden drop here, but you can see it's wide enough very comfortably to cross. So it has a reputation that's not earned, I think. So don't listen to everything you hear about 14ers. Each person is different. Each person has their own level of fears or non-fears. So I scampered across it with no problem at all. So if you want to get in touch with me about 14ers, I'll be happy to talk to you anytime about them. I appreciate being able to give this talk because it enabled me to relive my time on the 14ers. So thank you very much. I'll be happy to take questions.
David, thank you for this presentation. I moved here 3 years ago from New York City, so mountains are new to me. I've yet to do a hike in Colorado. My mountain experience is just snowboarding. So 2 questions for you. You said buy equipment over time, but obviously what are the equipment that I would need for day 1? And then 2, what is the easiest climb for a city slicker to start with?
I'll answer the second one first. The easiest, the common first ones are Grays and Torreys Peak. Grays, G-R-A-Y-S, and Torreys, T-O-R-E-Y-S. The trailhead is off of I-70. Not the trailhead, the road to the trailhead is off of I-70 near the tunnel, near the Eisenhower Tunnel. So it's easily accessible from Denver. But it's very popular. On a weekend, you literally can have hundreds of climbers trying to summit. So if you do that one, go midweek. And as much as you can, go midweek so you don't get the weekend crowds. Some of the 14ers aren't that popular, so to speak, so it really doesn't matter when you climb it. But Grays and Torreys is extremely popular. Another easy one is Mount Sherman. It's near Fairplay, down Highway 285. That's a pretty easy one. What's another easy one? Well, the hardest 14er is the one you're on at the moment. So I won't say they're easy, but easier. I think any others might be good ones to start with. Another one might be Mount Bierstadt, which is near Mount Evans. It's on the other side of Mount Evans. That's a relatively easy one. It does have one steeper part, where it goes up, the angle is a little steeper, but you do switchbacks. You don't go straight up, you do switchback. That takes away some of the vertical climb. As far as the first question about what gear is essential, I would ask at REI, what's the minimum you would take along for a first hike in the mountains? And mention hike and not climb, because the equipment's different. Some of the equipment is different. This may sound haughty, but I don't think I can answer the question because I've climbed so much, I can't separate what's basic and what's not. I know I had a standard pack. I kept my pack ready to go at any time. So I didn't really think too much about what I was taking once I learned what the basics were. So I would ask that question at REI.
You know, David, it makes me think about what you said about your first 14er, like bathing suit, shoes, and something else, and then it snowed.
Yep.
That's all I was gonna offer up was, appropriate clothing, and layers of clothing so that you can manage your own body temperature as the environment changes.
Yeah, and it gets windy on top also, so you want to be able to put something on the summer. Thank you.
And I would imagine nobody's advocating for hiking 14ers in flip-flops, so probably some type of sturdy boot.
No. The trail will get them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I would suggest the Grays and Torreys. I mentioned 2 peaks. It's common to summit Grays first, Then there's a saddle between the two mountains. You can go down the saddle from Grace Peak and up the saddle to Torrey, so you can climb 2 in one day on your first time, or just climb one, and then next time come back and do the other one, or do both of them if you're ready to do both of them. And Mount Bierstadt is also pretty relatively easy one, except for that one stretch where it gets a little steep. And all three are fun mountains to climb. So you really get the experience of being in the mountains. I didn't get the real feel of climbing until I started climbing on talus, which are large chunks of rock. Then you really feel like you're really in the mountains, when you have to really use your hands and feet to climb. About half of the 14ers have trails right to the summit. So it's not a climb per se. I call it climbing because you're ascending a mountain. It's just easier to say. So about half of them have trails to the summit. Which one is it? Which one it is? The highest 14er in Colorado. It escapes me right now. Anybody remember?
Princeton?
Which one?
Mount Princeton?
No, the highest 14er in Colorado.
Oh, Elbert.
Elbert, thank you. Yes,
Elbert. Yep.
That has a 4,000-foot elevation gain, but has a very easy trail, and it's the highest 14er in Colorado. And from there, you can see the Elk Range. You can see the other side of the mountains that you see when you're near Aspen. The Elk Range is near Aspen, so you get to see other 14ers, other beautiful sights from the summit. But I digress. So I think of other ones that might be good first ones to try. Which one has 3,000 feet elevation gain?
La Plata comes to mind. Do you think La Plata is a fairly easy one, is it not?
It's a fairly easy one, but it's got full summit, so it can be very discouraging if it's your first climb. A full summit is something that looks like a summit as you're ascending. When you get to it, you see another summit past it. It's like the bear went over the mountain. What do you think he saw? He saw another mountain. So I wouldn't recommend that as the first one. I'd recommend that as an early one. It was one of my favorite climbs, but I wouldn't recommend it as the first one.
It's also just plain hard to find when you're driving there. Yeah, not the easiest one. Yeah, drive back in there, right?
Yeah, La Plata has two approaches from both sides of the mountain. I recommend the one that approaches from Winfield. It's an old ghost town called Winfield, and I would recommend climbing from there because it's a shorter climb, unless you want a long climb. The long climb goes along the ridge a lot.
Corey, do you want to jump in with a question?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, David, I had a couple of questions. I experienced Mount Bierstadt climb, so luckily only knowing maybe a third of the information you gave today, we were successful. We saw everything from people who barely wore anything and maybe just shorts, and I believe there was a gentleman who had shorts and running shoes, and he literally ran up Bierstadt and back down in
oh my God.
probably a third or half the time that it took us. I was out of shape, and 3 weeks before Mount Bierstadt, we did the Manitou Springs Incline, and this was before they repaired it. So I also struggled on that incline. So my first question was, what are your thoughts about all of the electrolytes? Because when I got to the top of the incline, my partner, like my hiking buddy, Holly, she had electrolyte water, but I had regular water, and it seemed to help me tremendously when I had some of her electrolyte water. And I don't know why my regular water just really wasn't helping me. I think it was just a hot day that we did the incline. Mount Bierstadt, however, we had regular water. I don't know. I think we had, the electrolyte water, and then at the top, the summit, when we ate our lunch, we had tea. And now now I'm looking back, and I don't know if tea was dehydrating, but both seemed fine. But I seem to prefer the electrolyte water now. So
Sure.
do you
No,
have
find
thoughts on
whatever's
that?
comfortable for you.
Yeah.
I would take along 2 cans of Kern's juice. That was my treat on the summit.
Oh, okay.
So wherever works for you. That ended up working for me, so I did it.
Yeah, the Bierstadt, I didn't ever do a 14er, and I thought we're out in the wilderness. I also took bear spray. Do you recommend any kind of protection like that?
Sure. If it makes you feel more secure. I never took any along. The peaks that I did solo were not known as peaks that had bears on them. So I wasn't, or mountain lions for that matter. They're a bigger danger.
Right, I was thinking of that too. Okay.
If you're with a group and you're making noise, the animals will stay away.
Oh, okay.
If you're talking or not banging on a metal pot, but just talking, you're probably safe on there.
Oh, good to know. Thank you. And would you care if I share a couple pictures?
No, go ahead.
I'll share my screen for everyone just to see Bierstadt. We had a beautiful day. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So here's Holly and I at the top, and we just got so blessed because on the way down we did get a little bit of that fine snow, like the little pellets of snow, and then right when we got back to our vehicle, it started to rain and thunderstorm, so we were safe. So that's one view.
Wait, before you leave that view, I recommend what they have a sign up, Mount Bierstadt in the elevation. I recommend doing that. I started doing that when I was in the teens of climbing 14ers. And I write the elevation, name of the mountain, the elevation, and the number 14er was.
And actually, I think somebody had that, or it might have been left. Yeah, I don't remember if she wrote that, but I know the paper in my hand is from the canister where we could write our names.
Oh, uh-huh.
And then here's the other view.
Oh, nice.
So this was probably, gosh, 5 years ago. So I haven't, now I'm re-inspired to get back out there, but definitely want to be better prepared. I wore way too much gear. We had our layers, so it worked out because we were able to, tear down our layers, but seeing other people with just, leggings and fanny pack with water kind of race up the mountain, it really seemed like that would be nice to be a lot lighter than all the stuff that we took.
Well, there is such a thing as too much gear, but you find a balance after a while. You see, I don't really need this, or what kind of container should I use for my water? I noticed you had a Camel back there.
Yeah.
So some people it works well, so use it. It never worked well for me, so I just carry the different bottles of water.
Well, thank you so much, David. I'm very excited to start hiking again.
Sure. Feel free to ask questions anytime.
David, I had a question, if I could jump in.
Sure.
How did you arrange to climb Calibra Peak?
I climbed it early on because I saw it was on private property.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it might be difficult to climb. I did a lot of climbing with the Colorado Mountain Club at the time, and they have an arrangement now with the owners of Calibra Peak that every summer they admit, I think, 20 or 25 people. So if you plan on doing 054, get that one out of the way quickly, because you never know when the rules are going to change. For a while, it was closed to the public. I did it number 11 or 12 because I was concerned that might be cut off.
That's a smart move. Also, kind of the smart move is to not save all the hardest ones for last.
Yes, good point.
Which is a tendency, I think, as well.
Some people save Mount Evans for last because then they can climb and people can drive up to the top and have a party.
Nice.
Or Pikes Peak, which has a road to the top.
Mm-hmm.
So I was originally planning on doing that, but one summer I was able to climb only 114er because of the snow. and it was Mount Evans. So I didn't want to go a summer without climbing a 14er. So it was number 44 for me. I held out as long as I could. But that's a good point. Don't say the most difficult ones for last.
I was just going to ask quickly, David, have you done any winter ascents or descents? Because you can't do one without the other.
David, if you're talking, I can't hear you.
Oh, it didn't unmute for me. I'm sorry about that. Just a quick question. Have you done any winter ascents? Or did you focus
I
on the
climbed
summer?
Mount Bierstadt in the winter,
Okay.
and that was my one and only winter descent.
Yeah, that's my
Winter
only
descent.
winter ascent as well as on Bierstadt.
I didn't care for it. I don't like being cold. That's my own personal
Going
thing.
skiing down was pretty fun, but talk
Oh wow.
about having to bring up a bunch of gear. Right, snowboards.
Right.
Our hike leader had skis. The whole 9 yards. And that was certainly heavy. I think I'm with you. I wouldn't do another one in the winter.
I was getting near the summit. I was looking forward to lunch on the summit, and when I got there, my bagel had frozen, so I didn't have lunch. So things like that I don't care for.
Corey, you have a question?
Oh, I wanted to let you go first. You had your hand up. Brian.
Oh, my hand is stuck up there. I don't know why. I can't get it away.
I was just going to say, yeah, with Bierstadt, we experienced obviously some cold in the morning because we started early. And so we had all of our layers on, probably too many. Then we stuffed them in our backpack to take off a lot of those layers. And it was like gorgeous midway up, and then at the top it was freezing. So even though those pictures are gorgeous, I was actually kind of shaking just because of my muscles calming down, and we were trying to eat, and definitely we needed the food, and I had hot tea. So my best friend Holly was just like, this tea and this wrap, it was some kind of turkey wrap or something, homemade, was like the best we've ever had because like we just needed it. And so yeah, I definitely want to say that sometimes you just don't know, because it seemed like we had all seasons when you take a look at the whole way up and the whole way back down. We had a little snow, like I said, and rain by the time we got back, but beautiful hot weather in between. It was really hard to know what to take. So I'm glad we kind of took too much, but looking back, I would like to make it lighter, definitely, the type of material maybe.
Yeah, the type of material is polypropylene, which you wear as an undergarment. That helps you stay warm and wick the sweat away. So things like that, at REI, they can tell you that. They can outfit you very well with it.
I know for at least just smaller hikes, I go to Sanitas in Boulder, and that Sanitas hike, I learned that I want good socks and my good hiking boots. So I always know that works for me. I see people in the hiking shoes, but I like that extra support for my ankles. And so that's another fun trail that's sometimes too popular, but little hike. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So my question is, what are the hikes that you would do again, and what are the hikes that you don't want to do ever again?
Missouri Mountain, I don't want to do ever again. It was number 19. It was the only 14er that I didn't enjoy, really, really, truly enjoy.
We called it misery.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I agree.
I would climb Grays and Torreys at the start of every summer just to check my conditioning. So I enjoyed those. La Plata Peak I would do again. It was a beautiful mountain. The karma there was nice. Each mountain has its own karma. I climbed Pikes Peak 4 times from the west, not from the bar trail, but from the west. I would do Capitol Peak again in a heartbeat. It was that area is my most beautiful spot in Colorado. Which ones I would climb again? I would say about half of them I would go up without in a heartbeat. Some I would think about, and some I wouldn't want to try again.
Are there certain ones that are seasonal, like you definitely need to do in this season and not the other season? Or is it
Well, I climbed only in the summer. I was a fair weather climber. So most of them have ice in the winter, of course, on them, so the climb becomes more treacherous. You have ice under snow, you can't see it. So it's one of these that I like climbing in the winter. But certainly my season was summer. I started in early June if the snow permitted. I would do some conditioning climbs like Grays and Torreys. And then I would hike till mid-December. Mid-September is usually, well, late September, it depends on the season, was the climbing season for me. But there's a book out, there's a fellow named Lou Dawson who climbed all the 14ers in the winter. He skied down all the 14ers. And so he wrote a book on that. So if you're interested in winter climbing, I would get his books. He's got a 2-volume set.
Do you lead any climbs now, or do you take groups up at all?
No, my climbing days are over. I've got 2 replacement hips and a replacement knee. So and a transplanted kidney. So I'm supposed to stay out of the sun because of the kidney. So my days are over. My last one was about 5 years ago. It happened to be my first one also, Quantity Peak. I didn't know it then, but that was my last one.
We're just now on the hour, and I'm glad to go a little over. It's a pleasure for me to hang around for a little bit. But just to mention that we're at the hour, we'll figure out how we'll edit later. But please hang on if you'd like to, or if you're watching this later on as a recording, you can stay on as well. Beyond that, I had one thought. That is kind of steal an expression, borrow an ism. And that is, when's the best time to start climbing 14ers? 20 years ago. When's the second best time? Today.
I was 42 when I started, and I climbed number 54 when I was 53. So you really can start anytime. Age is not a factor, it's your conditioning.
I think I climbed my first one when I was 12.
Oh, wow.
And then I've had some lengthy gaps in between of doing none or one or something like that a year. But it was great.
There's a boy who was 6 or 7 years old when he climbed number 54. I read that somewhere.
Yeah.
Number 54, the amount of hikes he's done?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted. I haven't really said too much. I've just been kind of paying attention. You said number 54, as in the numbers he's done, the number of hikes he's done?
Yeah, he climbed the 54th when he was 6 or 7 years old.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I thought this was really good, and I was really glad to listen to this. So thank you guys for putting this on. I've always been interested, and I've had friends who've done Bierstead, and it's been nice to hear what people have to say about it and some extra things. Diane asked a lot of good questions that I wanted to ask, but I thought this was really cool, and I appreciate you guys having me. So, Brian, if this is recorded, or Dave, whoever recorded it, if you'd like me to just do a couple of edits or throw some stuff on, let me know. I'll be around today. I'm going to be working on a couple of things, but thanks, guys. I appreciate it. This was awesome.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
David, do you think that your experience climbing these peaks has had a influence on your view of ecology, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the peaks have really worn out trails, and it's which one was it? Can't think of it right now. It was like when you were walking on the trail, you were walking waist high next to the ground. That's not the trail. It's been so worn, and of course you want to preserve things. You don't want to walk on the wildflowers. You want to stay off the meadows if you can. You want to stay on trail because it takes a long time for the flora to recover because of the short season. But it definitely made me more sensitive to the environment.
Yeah, we see some of the snowy sections if you did some in the early spring that are snowy sections that would survive years ago would survive through the summer, often melt out now. And one spot comes to mind, and that's the reaching the saddle between Grays and Torreys. And years ago, this would be 44 or 5 years ago. No, yeah. So between 40 and 45 years ago, it was a 60 to 100 foot stretch of snow that in late season would be rock hard, and you'd kick steps up that. Do you remember that stretch right there?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The bottom of the saddle.
Yeah, you could if you fell there on that stuff, and
I think a lot of it depends on the season. Sometimes you have a lot of snow. Sometimes you have. In 1998 was an El Nino year, and the high country wasn't accessible to people like me until August.
Yeah,
because there's so much snow. I didn't care to climb on it.
Yeah.
But in some seasons, one season I climbed 15 of them because the snow melted early, and I was able to go almost every weekend.
Excellent.
So it really depends on what the winter was in the spring. Was it a warm spring or a cool spring? So I don't know if we can read much climate change into that because of the variations of weather from season to season. Although the ski resorts are saying it's snowing later now.
Well, let's see. Yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed it. One last little thought I had too, a little experience to share was I was climbing with I should have been prepared because I'm blanking now about. I climbed with a couple of faculty members on the Maroon Bell, and at that lower notch, it was like the gates of Mordor there with swirling misty clouds, and everything was wet. And I said, this is my turnaround. This is my categorical decision turnaround spot right now based on this. And sure enough, we turned around, and then, within a half an hour, it was something, it looked like this guy behind Dave in his graphic. You see that kind of sky all the time. It kind of broke, but I never really. I would say I did regret turning around. I think rationally that it was the right thing for me to do, but then emotionally I felt terrible because I felt like these were one of the last 14ers for these fellas to climb, and I kind of made the decision for them not to proceed, and I think it would have been fine. That's one mountain you don't want to be on, though, when it's whipping windy and then wet. Yeah.
You can't descend quickly on that mountain.
So some of them are quite impressive, actually.
I was on a climb with a climbing buddy, North Maroon Peak, the right bell, the one on the right, and it was going to be his number 54, and I hadn't climbed yet. I was still in the high 40s. And about halfway up, the clouds started rolling in, and I said, "I'm going back. I'm not sticking around for this." And he was really pissed because he wanted to do number 54. And all hell broke loose about half hour later. And so I have no regrets. He does maybe, but I don't.
You're vindicated.
Yeah. Well, there's some very interesting kind of decision-making literature that seems serendipitous to me. I've sort of got interested in this, and I posted a couple of links in the chat But those decisions and how they're reinforced with the outcomes, but when you're making a decision, you don't truly know what the outcome will be and how that affects our next decision. And I just stumbled onto a book. Well, it didn't stumble; it was intentionally marketed to me via Facebook. But it's called Noise, and it's about how two doctors might make a completely different diagnosis based on the exact same observations. And so these decisions, I just saw that this morning. I'll have to get that and add it to my list. I attended a discussion by a world champion poker player. She's the first or only probably woman still to hold that title. And she takes her decision making and applies it to different disciplines. And she talked about avalanche safety and making decisions in the backcountry around avalanches and go no go kind of decisions. And that was fascinating. And I put a link to that in our chat as well.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And the summit lure and those conflicts that can come from decisions to turn around. And the two gentlemen I was climbing with were perfectly polite about it. I mean, they were really good and supportive of my decision. I would hope they would have continued and allowed me to just go down by myself. But then, that's another thing, right? Yeah, soloing or doing stuff.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to relive all this. It was great fun, and I think it was useful to people. So they have my contact info. You have my contact info for your questions.
Yeah, you bet. We'll be in touch for sure. Keep an eye out. If you can join us for technology tomorrow, that would be great.
Tomorrow I can't. I have a long day tomorrow, teaching.
Excellent. Well, this was really a pleasure. I want to let Dave jump in too. I don't want to.
No, that was it. Thank you. Yeah, this was great. Just loved hearing about your experiences and getting some of your little tips and advice there, which is really good. Thank you very much for coming by. This was awesome.
Sure, my pleasure.
Yeah.
If you ever want me to do it again, I'll be more than happy to.
For sure. Let's do. I mean, maybe a discussion about the future of 14ers or something like that.
Yeah, because you hear the expression "they're being loved to death."
Yeah, right.
By people who are climbing and just a lot of people on the trail to wear it down.
Totally. And getting together and bringing Barney back in, David, myself, and a couple other panelists to just talk about experiences and these forecasting or projecting what the future might hold. That kind of stuff would be really interesting discussion, I think.
Mm-hmm.